Thanks for tuning in, and welcome to the Situating Science podcast. Today we're talking with the latest winner of the Gerhard Herzberg Medal for Science and Engineering, Dr. Ford Doolittle of Dalhousie University. Awarded by the Natural Sciences and Engineering Council of Canada, the medal was named after the 1971 Nobel Prize winner of chemistry, Canada's own Gerhard Herzberg. It was established to celebrate Canada's most influential and excelling scientists and engineers, and to raise public awareness of the direct benefit that Canadians receive through the research of these scientists. Dr. Doolittle's controversial work as a molecular biologist has marked him as a high-caliber researcher. His past work includes critiques of Darwin's evolutionary tree, arguing that this model is inadequate to explain much of the evolution of life on Earth because of a process called lateral gene transfer. Lateral gene transfer has since been widely adopted as one of the major driving forces behind microbial genome evolution. Dr. Doolittle is now a member of one of the 7 Canadian teams participating in the International Human Microbiome Project, said to be on par with the Human Genome Project. This project explores the role of bacteria in and on our bodies in disease and health. So, Dr. Doolittle, what do you think are some of the biggest implications of the work being done as part of the Human Microbiome Project?
It's kind of obvious in a way that we have been evolving with our microbes for millions and millions of years, and it's only just recently that we realize we can start to understand the complexity of the microbial communities that are in and on our bodies and how these might impact on our own health and be more generally interesting scientifically as well. So there's a whole new science that's developing around what's called microbiomics, which is looking at the complex communities of microbes using what's called next generation sequencing, very rapid, very cheap DNA and RNA sequencing, which have made it possible to look at extremely complicated ecosystems with cheaply and easily and quickly.
Is there any major evolution in the technology that is used in molecular biology that has been changing because of this research?
Well, I think it's the other way around. It's the technological change, which has impacted so dramatically the research, because basically DNA sequencing has become, it's much better than Moore's law. It's not just dropping exponentially, it's dropping sort of hyper-exponentially, so that the rate of, the first bacterial genome that was sequenced in Canada was sequenced here in Halifax at the National Research Council, and I think it cost about $3 million, and it took about 3 years and 3 people full-time, and now you could sequence a genome over lunch for $100 probably. So it's just an amazing change in the way in which we get data, and the real problem now is to analyze all that data, which is what the microbiome project that I'm part of here at Dalhousie is about, is looking at the data, not actually getting it.
How is this research going to interact with the realms of public health and health legislation in Canada?
Well, I don't know much about legislation at this point, but there are many parts of the development of human health, of normal human development, or in fact even psychiatry and particularly, obviously, gastrointestinal things. Almost all aspects of human health are influenced by the microbes that primarily are in our gut, but also on our skin and elsewhere, that produce metabolites which affect our own metabolism and or may cause disease. But in general, the belief is that a healthy microbiome is a cooperative community with our own biology and helps to make us healthier and do a better job of replicating them at the same time. So the general understanding is that this harmony can be disturbed by any variety of factors, and we can now start to look at that in a way that we could never do before.
So how will the research being done affect fields outside of biology and medicine? You already mentioned psychiatry, but is there any other realm that will be heavily influenced?
Well, one of the fields that I find most interesting now is actually the field that's called ancient DNA. So people are looking at fossils, and sometimes they're looking at fossilized human poop to deduce what people's diets were, as well as what the genetic makeup of the people were, and what the microbes that they enjoyed having or suffered from tens of thousands of years ago. So to my mind, it's really going to be interesting to reconstruct the history of the human diet and human health using these technologies.
What do you think the next steps in research around the Human Microbiome Project will be?
Well, I think there are problems. microbiomes are actually alarmingly unstable in many ways, so developing appropriately sophisticated bioinformatic methods for identifying what is retained from one microbiome to another, or even from the same individual from one year to the next, or even maybe one day to the next. There clearly is some some signal there, some reproducible characteristics of the communities that inhabit our bodies, but it's actually harder than I think we thought initially to sort these out. So there's a lot of heavy-duty computational biology that's going to have to be done.
Do you expect that this kind of research will come from any specific field?
I mean, in some ways it's a sort of a straightforward application of bioinformatic methods that have already been developed, but I think an interesting thing about human microbiomics is that this is one field where clinical research has actually been behind. The methods and the general ways of understanding microbial diversity and microbial ecology have come from environmental microbiologists and people interested in evolution, in fact, and it was a good 10 years later before clinical microbiologists actually realized that they could apply these molecular methods to the ecosystem, which is our own body. So that's interesting to me that clinical research is actually lagged way behind more basic, or at least environmentally driven research in this area.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today, Dr. Doolittle, and congratulations on winning the Herzberg Medal. Thanks to the listeners for tuning in. For more podcasts and information on upcoming events, visit situsci.ca. That's situsci.ca.